What's up, movie nerds and basketball geeks? Welcome back to Movie Ball. I'm dressed pretty nice tonight. It's 3 in the morning. I'm tired. I went out. Tonight. You might be thinking to yourself, oh, well, you probably just dressed nice and pretended to go out to make it look like you have friends, and that's exactly what I did. No, I mean, look, I have the wristband on. It's there. Party! Exclamation point. I could have gotten this from like a third grade birthday party or something, but I went out. I have friends. I do things. I've got something really special brewing up because on today's episode, I will be introducing the first installment of a new series I'm creating called Dynasty League. And you're probably thinking, hey, what's that? And then I will now answer what it is. It's really quite simple. This is the first year that me and my friends decided that we wanted to do a fantasy basketball dynasty league, and I play regular fantasy every year through ESPN, and what that is, if you're not aware, it's just, drafting the best players in the pool of all of the NBA players that there are, just drafting who you think would be the best players to help you win a championship. That was like a really shitty way of explaining and describing what a fantasy basketball league is, but at the end of the day, I'm still doing regular fantasy, and that's going to be a league that is just competitive as fuck, but I'm doing Dynasty, like I said, for the first time with my friends, and I just thought it would be really fun to document it through the season. The difference in Dynasty from a regular fantasy basketball league is that essentially you hold on to your players forever, or at least until the league is terminated. But the whole idea of Dynasty is that you want to create a league that you will be playing for quite some time because you hold on to everyone that you draft. Like, essentially, with our league, since we were all new to it and we haven't done Dynasty before, we decided the best thing to do was that we would just start with holding on to, at the end of the year, just 8 players instead of 13 that come with a fantasy team. We're just going to hold on to 8 players, so we can always change it at the end of the year, see how it goes, but since we've decided on it, we're going to hold on to 8 players, which, makes a game plan for all the teams in the league. It can be different for everyone, and holding on to 8 players means there's 5 players that you won't be holding on to at the end of the year, so what do you want to do with them? And with that, we are a 10-team league. Some people do 8, some people do 12, some people do fucking 20, which is insane, but I just always preferred 10. It just makes the most sense to me, and it's just a regular head-to-head fantasy points league. So what that means is basically you just, the players that you drafted, you go up against another team in the league with the players they drafted, and whichever players get the most points throughout the entire week, Monday to Sunday, whoever has the most points at the end of the week, they win their matchup. And if you don't really know fantasy basketball or know fantasy at all, I've considered making a fantasy basketball video in the future, like kind of like a 101 tips on how to get into it and how it all works kind of type deal. But I just figured for this video in this series that would just be way too much to cover. So I thought that I would just kind of go over the bare essentials of what our Dynasty League is and what kind of the basic rules are regarding it. So it's a 10-team league, like I said, 19 weeks of regular season matchups. I know that sounds like a lot, but the NBA season is very long, spanning from October all the way till, if you count the playoffs in June. So that's most of the year. 19 weeks of regular season matchups, followed by 3 weeks of postseason playoff matchups. 6 teams make the playoffs, so there's 10 teams in the league, and it's 2 conferences, an Eastern and Western conferences. We could have 4 teams in the West, but that one team that is not as good as that 5th Western Conference team that's in the East will make the playoffs because someone has to make it. That's just how the rules work for our league. So now that I've gone through the basics of what our league entails, and if I missed anything, I could touch upon it within further episodes, and I'll explain things, if I missed any rules or shit that, our league does that might not make sense because I didn't talk about it. But for now, you're going to meet the teams, you're going to meet the players based on the rankings that I made, ranked 10 through 1 of the worst to the best, who has the least chance to win the championship this year, who has the best, where are they all going to be placed, how are we going to finish the fantasy season. So these are based on basically how well everyone drafted and their prior fantasy experience. I know every team is different. Some people drafted with the goal in mind of not winning a championship for another 3 years. They're trying to build towards something. Some people are like, no, I'm winning now. This is my team and we're going to go for it. I get that. Everyone's got different viewpoints. Based on this season, where's everyone going to end? At the end of the day, we're all in the same league and we're all going towards something this year. Some people are going to be worse. Some are not. You okayed this. You said this was fine for me to do, guys. So don't get fucking mad at me if you're in 10th place. Or if you're in first. Don't be happy. Coming in at last place at number 10, I've got Team McLovin, aka Joshua Burek. If for one reason only Josh is ranked this low, it's because he literally forgot about the draft. His first couple of picks were auto-drafted because he forgot that the draft was happening. So, I don't know much about Josh's fantasy experience. This is my first year playing with him. But if you forget the most important part of the draft and the most important part of the fantasy season, that's not a good sign. Luckily, however, Josh's centerpiece first-round pick happened to be Karl Anthony Towns, a super young beast who has MVP odds in his future. Unfortunately, though, after that, things don't look too hot. I like Pascal Siakam a lot, enough to the point where I traded Damian Lillard for him, straight up. This could be a good trade for both sides, but considering I have Josh in 10th place, it probably would have been smarter to hold on to a young asset who will only get better. Capella is nice too, but after that, everyone else kind of has question marks around them, which is not good. Vucevic is underrated and very skilled, but he is an injury-riddled player that made it out safe last season. That doesn't bode well for his odds to remain healthy all of this year, and his numbers last year were the best of his career, which could have been a fluke. Lonzo, I believe, will step up this season in a big way, could be at about 14 points, 6 rebounds, 9 assists, to go along with 2 steals, but we still haven't seen it, although this new environment should help him. And, Kuzma isn't anything other than a scorer, and while he's young and could improve, I don't see him making the jump this season with Anthony Davis in town for the first year. Andrew Wiggins is just god-awful. This is like his absolute last chance to turn it around and show us kind of that flash that we all expected. I mean, he was compared to LeBron when he came into the league, and I know people say that shit all the time, but Wiggins had potential, and I guess it's still there, but his fantasy output it's been awful because all he does is score, and if he's not scoring, he's doing it inefficiently, and he's not doing anything else, so I don't like him in fantasy. Here are the positives for you, Josh. You have Karl Anthony Towns, who is one of the best centers in the league. He's still insanely young. He's going to be good for years. He is a great centerpiece to build your team around, and you're already active in trade talks and scanning the waiver wire, and that bodes well for competing and wanting it. But your cons, Josh, to me, you missed the draft, and that's gonna hurt you. It could have not only altered your team and made it better, but altered other people's picks and their teams. Things could have been looking different. And I just think that a lot of your players, your younger players that have potential, their potential either teeters on the borderline of uncertain to not much at all. So, sorry, you're in 10th. Barring injuries, trades, and pickups for every team, let's take a look at Josh's projected returning players and record. The best part of this team is clearly Towns, followed by Lillard, and most of the other players are locked to come back next year, and I think Cam Reddish has too much potential not to bring back next season. Overall, I'm going to have Josh's record at 4-15. At number 9, I'm sorry, bro, but I've got Team Cornell, aka Cameron Cornell. Cam is a fantastic fantasy player, one that I have firsthand seen do amazing things. He won the championship and MVP in our regular season multiple times. But when it comes to Dynasty, these are all of our first years. Not that he drafted bad or poorly in any sense of the word. It's just that his team is clearly meant for something building in the future. Cam has stockpiled insanely worthy assets, and looking at this team at just a glance, it actually looks like the clear team to beat for the season. This was Cam's draft, but he has replaced Marc Gasol with Brandon Clark, and since our league allows for 2 injury reserve spots, he also picked up Mikal Bridges and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Cam's team, like I said, looks really good, but let's go over the facts here. Kevin Durant and John Wall are literally out for the entire year. They're in his injury reserve, so yes, they don't take up playing spots, but he used pretty high draft picks on them, which understandably makes a lot of sense, at least for KD. But if you're on Cam's team and you're not injured, consider yourself lucky. Jusuf Nurkic is going to miss most of the season, slated for a return in February. Oladipo is slated for a return in December. Paul George and Zion Williamson will both miss about a month to open the season, and Kevin Love might as well be injured since he's in and out of the morgue every fucking season. Believe me, I drafted him last year, motherfucker! The thing to remember with Nurkic, Oladipo, and George is that even though when they all come back, they're not going to play back-to-back games, and they'll all be on minutes restrictions. This could prove lethal to Cam's chances of making the playoffs. Here are your positives, Cam. You have a shit ton of assets that you could hold on to and will be beneficial as soon as next year for your team, or you can trade them and, either way, you're in a good position. You put yourself in a spot that, while it won't help you this year, you are building towards something greater. And you took Zion Williamson, who could very well be the next great generational talent, the possible future face of the NBA. So you're set for life. But your cons are that you just have way too many injured players, and I know that you know that. I don't think that you plan on making the playoffs or going anywhere this year, because even if they all come back and are relatively healthy by January, it might be too little too late for your team. And I think that you're not going to make the playoffs. To me, this looks like the core that Cam will return with next season, which is very scary. For now, though, I've got Cam finishing 6-13. Finishing in 8th place, I've got Team Rolfie Boys, aka Gio Ospina, the second of 2 Ospina brothers. Gio had himself a pretty decent draft. It was good. I mean, he's going to be a serious contender in the future. As of right now, though, some of these players are young and haven't shown us that potential that we all believe that they have. We need to see it more, because literally all of his team is young. Obviously, getting Ben Simmons is a fucking blessing from the gods. I was this close to taking him myself, as he's a walking triple-double only after his 2nd season. DeAndre Ayton is also going to be insane, and while I haven't been too impressed with Tatum after 2 seasons, I can only imagine he's going to be really good soon. As a Knicks fan, I love Mitchell Robinson, and he has DPOY potential infused with if Hassan Whiteside was good when he first came into the league, so there's that. Marvin Bagley also, showed us some of that flash towards the second half of the season last year, and he will probably be in for a kind of most improved type season this year. Jamal Murray, I like, and I do think he's going to continue to get better, but he is kind of just a shoot-first player that scores and shoots, and his assist numbers don't get too high, his rebounding doesn't get too high, he's not a good defender. And Caldwell Pope, no, just fuck off. So Gio, your positives are that if all of your players pan out, which I guess you could say about literally any team that was drafted, but if all of your players pan out, you will be competing for a championship next season. You have a lot of young talent that could all potentially just be really, really good. But your cons are that we just need to see a little bit more from these young players. Tatum and Bagley, these are kind of franchise cornerstones for your team that they haven't really shown it fantasy-wise. We've seen the flashes of what they can do, but this is the year that these two are going to need to step it up and show us, okay, they were worth your 3rd and 4th round picks. And you have a lot of other younger players, like I said, Jarrett Culver, Kobe White. These could be great players, but as of this season, I really don't think that their potential is scarce to be that great in just one season. Literally, Gio's first 8 picks, I would imagine, is the squad that he will move forward with, because after that, the team doesn't have much potential or relevant players, but this is a good squad to move ahead with, and my projected record is 7-12. Next up in 7th place, I have Team Cephalosha, aka my fucking self. My nickname is Ceph. Don't ask why.
Don't hit that alarm clock. Don't hit that alarm clock. Don't hit that.
I bet a lot of you thought I would put myself somewhere in like the top 3, and I thought about it, but just looking at the rest of the teams in this league, they're pretty stacked to compete for this season, and I just don't think I'm there yet. I knew that I wanted to build towards a future with a team and see where I can go and not really put all my chips into one basket for this season. So here's what happened with my draft. I am just so thankful to get Luka, because this dude is like 10 years old and put up better stats as a rookie than LeBron James. The flip side of that, though, of course, is that Tyreek Evans put up the same stats as LeBron, and I wonder how many fucking dynasty leagues he ruined, but I'm pretty confident Luka Doncic will win an MVP at some point in his career. He's got a lot of room to get better, and he's already so good, so I'm in love. Some of my draft, though, I dropped the ball on and wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I kind of tried to draft as if I was rebuilding while also competing, and I'm not sure if that was the best strategy. However, now that I've traded Lillard away, who I aggressively tried to move, I've got a team all under the age of 25, aside from Steven Adams at 26. Lillard for Siakam could prove to be an amazing trade for me, or just not make a difference. It's really a win-win for me, at least in my opinion. Lillard is a top 10 player in the league, sure, but for fantasy value, everyone expects Siakam to be like a 20 and 10 guy with about 2 blocks per game. That's pretty equivalent to the types of fantasy numbers Lillard will put up, and that's only for this season. Siakam is young and should only get better. Lauri Markkanen has proven, like I said about Gio's team, you've got Jason Tatum and Marvin Bagley who have potential and might have higher potential than Markkanen, but Markkanen has already proven what he can do, and he will still get better. He's going to be a 20 and 10 guy. Jaren Jackson looked like a two-way monster in his rookie season, and that was just flashes. I am very looking forward to what he could do. I'm glad I took him high. Same goes for Ja Morant. This is the future duo, the core of the Grizzlies, and I've got them both. I'm excited about that. So, Joe, yes, I'm talking to myself. Here are your positives. I think that you have a lot of young players that could be potential superstars, and if not superstars, really good all-stars. You've got players that they're very enticing, and even if they don't pan out all the way, they're almost locked in my eyes to pan out somewhat, and that's good. You even have a chance to make the playoffs because everyone I mentioned so far is in the Eastern Conference. We're all in the same conference, and if I've got 3 people behind me, there's a slight someone in the East has to get in. So I could sneak in. But your cons are that you kind of drafted unsure, kind of second guessing yourself, maybe dropping the ball on a few picks when you weren't sure exactly what you wanted to do. You're ugly, which just makes this all the much more worse. You've got a lot of power forwards, and you've got to decide who you want to move forward with come next season. There will be difficult decisions to make here. What if MPJ is what we all expected? What if Sexton really steps it up? What if Miles Bridges averages 16 and 7? What if, like I said, Steven Adams is a beast at only 26, averaging like 15 and 11? It'll be hard, but I think this is what my core will look like at the end of the day, with a record this year of 9 and 10. Finishing in 6th place, and the first team I have making the playoffs is Team Volk, aka CJ Volk. CJ, yeah!
Yo, CJ. What's going on? You watching that 70s show? You're always watching that, CJ.
Yo, the 76ers.
Yeah.
CJ, he likes milk. CJ got the number 1 overall pick and is set for life with Giannis, so he has to make the playoffs. This is clearly a team, though, that is built for winning this year and sooner rather than later. To me, the only real young stars here are Giannis and Collins, and while Beal is very, very good and still young, he is injury prone and it's a little uncertain what will happen with his future and his contract and all that shit, but he's still getting better. Fultz is young, but that's like a huge flyer that CJ might not even hold on to, and Valanciunas and Montrez have the potential to put up big numbers, but I could see it being short-lived with them. Mike Conley, he's just getting up there in age, and he's in a position now where he is deferring to 2 other players, and there's more opportunities on this team. I don't think he's going to be too amazing, and he's injury prone as fuck. Darius Garland, this is a very good pick because the Cavs fucking suck, and this was the Cavs' top pick this year, and I don't know how it's going to work with Sexton next to him, but Darius Garland has the tools to be a great player. Marcus Smart, no. CJ, why? I hate that dude. So CJ, your positives are that you have Giannis. You're set, like I said. Like, you got Giannis, you should be good. You've got enough decent, solid players around him, even if they're getting older, not as good as what they were. They should be good enough to get you into the playoffs for sure, I think. You're good looking. But the cons, CJ, are that I don't think your team... I don't think it's regarded well as a dynasty team, and what I mean by that is like what I kind of already touched on. Like these players are getting older; they're not what they used to be. It's gonna make for an awkward transition. I think that when you move on, Fultz might be a hot take, but there's obviously a reason you drafted him. It's because he was a Sixer, but it's also, if he plays well enough, this might be a flyer that's worth it. You just got to see how it goes this year. So at the end of the day, I'm going to throw CJ down for a 10-9 record. Now entering the top 5, we're in the top half of the league, and finishing in 5th place, I have Team Taylor, aka Sam Taylor.
Oh, shit, I bit the ball.
Sam has been a hit or miss fantasy player in the past, mainly due to his inability to consistently set his lineup. Being busy sucks, and it is a valid excuse to a point, but it's also, it sucks if that's the reason that's holding you back from possibly winning or doing better. So this is a good team. A bit odd, but a good team that should compete in the postseason this year. Curry, LeBron, and Westbrook as your first 3 picks. Imagine if this were a regular league, it would probably be fucking curtains. Unfortunately, though, I'm not high on a lot of Sam's other picks this year, and in terms of a dynasty team, there's a lot of question marks. Is Curry gonna be elite for like 5 more seasons, or just 3 more? And Westbrook and LeBron. It's interesting, but this year, those 3 should still all kill it. LaMarcus Aldridge, he's aging, and I'm imagining this is going to be a year that he starts to regress, but he will still be very solid. Brandon Ingram, I don't like. His health now is an issue. You know, he could have career-ending health problems with his blood clots, and I've just never been a big fan of his game. So you're positive, Sam, LeBron, Westbrook, Curry. This should be enough to more than carry your team to the playoffs. Aldridge, you know, mix him in with some other really solid players in there. You should be set. But your cons, Sam, are that I don't know if you're going to continue to set your lineup and pay attention, and that could easily cost you a playoff berth. And it's not guaranteed that you'll make the playoffs now, but like you easily should with the squad that you have. I think that you can. Westbrook, Curry, and LeBron all on the same team. That's disappointing if you don't make the playoffs, in my eyes. And add that to the fact that some of your younger players, their potential is questionable, and it's like where could you go from here? Where does Team Taylor go next season? I would imagine that you keep Shai Gilgeous even if he doesn't do that great this year, because you know you took him in the 5th round. But to me, this isn't a very great core for the future. Time will tell, but for now, I have Sam going 10-9. In 4th place will be Team Monta Ellis GOAT, a.k.a. Karthik Yadavar.
Monta Ellis, nigga. Number 8, Golden State Warriors on a bitch. I'm shooting 30 points a game, bitch. Monta Ellis, Monta Ellis. Jump shot Ellis. Dunk like Ellis.
Like a lot of the other teams, I think Karthik's team is set for a good competitive streak this season, but I'm not so sure about his future. Anthony Davis is still only 26 and probably still has about 8 years of dominance left. The only issues with him and the great 2nd round pick in Gobert is that they are both injury prone as hell, which could deeply hurt Karthik's chances not only this year, but for his dynasty as well. However, barring injuries, Karthik is in a good place to compete this season. Kyrie is a really good player, obviously, and although it might not be as optimal when KD returns, he's good. Middleton, McCollum, Turner, Buddy, Lowry, they should all be above average to really good fantasy options this year, but I'm not super high on any of them or their potential to take things further, except maybe Buddy. This is a great team for this year. You look at this team in a regular league, it might not look the best, but you look at it in a dynasty league where people are competing for the future, this is a team that wins now. So the positives here, K-Breezy, are that you know, Anthony Davis is crazy good. We know that, and the team you have around him should be solid enough to get you to at least the 2nd round, I'm thinking. But your cons, Keyshawn Bracey, are that I don't think there's a lot of value lying in your team's future. I said that several times. It's a good team that'll win now, but if you have any injuries as well, it could totally derail this season. These should be who Karthik holds on to, and unless Justice Winslow really surprises, I feel like this is fairly obvious. Expect an 11-8 record. Finishing in the top 3 in 3rd place, I have Team My Park Jameson, aka Anthony Ospina, the other older Ospina brother. Anthony drafted really good, I think. I like this team a lot, and unlike the other teams that I've talked about here, I think it's not only good this season, but good for the future as well. There's a lot of young talent here mixed with older talent, and it puts Anthony in a position to not only compete this season, but for the coming years. Embiid, Trae Young, Porzingis, and Zach LaVine, they're all young stars. And Barrett, DSJ, and Rui Hachimura all have potential to be that as well. However, there's a lot of injury concern here. For as good as Embiid is, he could play 50 games a year. Porzingis hasn't played in 2 years himself. Klay Thompson is out until probably March. Blake Griffin is a walking injury, so there is reasonable doubt Jay-Z here. But if they can remain relatively healthy, Anthony is going to be good. Except for Goga Bitadze or whatever the fuck his name is. I don't know why you drafted him. Your positives, Anthony, are that you like I said, you created a good blend, a good mixture of old and young players. It keeps you relevant not only to continue competing for the coming seasons, but for the future as well. And I think that's admirable. I'm impressed. But your cons, bro, are that you just have loads of injury concerns. Injuries could happen to any player at any time, but your players, a lot of them have histories. And even if they're really good, like Embiid and Blake Griffin, I don't know if they were worth it. This is probably the way to go, as Whiteside will be most likely virtually irrelevant once Nurkic returns. As for his record, I'm thinking something like 13-6. Finishing as the runner-up in second place, I have Team Drip Season, aka James Taylor, Sam's cousin. James' team is very much set to win now, while also being decently well-crafted for the future. James drafted a stellar team. Harden, Drummond, Kawhi, Jimmy. I mean, I don't even have to talk about them. Yes, most of them are older, and we don't know when their game will start to decline, but for now, it's fine. This is a win now team though, obviously. But then you start getting into some younger players. Bam Adebayo. This is potentially the next Clint Capella here. I mean, he's got the potential. Whiteside's minutes are gone. He should be eating those minutes up. Terry Rozier, although I'm skeptical of him, and he will be very inefficient, even if he puts up empty stats, and it might not mean much to people in the real basketball world, for fantasy, there's no such thing as empty stats. If you're putting up stats, it's going to be helpful, and that could very much be the case with Scary Terry. James, here are your positives. Kind of like Anthony, it's a good mix of older and younger players, but better. That's why I have you in second place. You have these good win-now players, Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, Andre Drummond, while also still pretty young, And then you've got younger players with that potential. Bam Adebayo, I think he's going to be really good for a lot of years, like I said. Next Capella, my eyes. But your cons, James, are that I think you're risking your title odds. After those first 8 picks, like I said, I'm not a big fan of the rest of your draft. And I understand that it's Dynasty. You want to pick players, flyers that could potentially be good, hold on to them, have them for years to come. I understand it, but this is a win-now team. You could easily win the championship this year. You're risking your title odds by holding on to these guys. I think that you could get players on the waiver wire somewhere that will put up better points, better numbers, that will easily help your team more. When it comes to who James will be keeping for his team, he's keeping his first straight 8 draft picks, and I think that's pretty obvious, and that's why I'm not a fan of his last couple of picks. Like I said, they're deep flyers, and you can get people that can help you out a lot more. Still, James has a clear chance to win this thing, and I'm going to peg him at 15-4. And in first place, winning the championship in the first ever Dynasty League for me and my friends, I have Team Cabrera, aka Ish. Ish has come a long way in fantasy, and I'm proud of him, and I think that he has a very good team, not only the best team for winning this thing right now, but a good team for the future. A lot of young talent on this team. Jokic is obviously leading the way here as an absolute monster, and that's just no question. De'Aaron Fox could also be a 20 and 10 point guard, maybe this season. Julius Randle is a young and underappreciated big man that I think could be an all-star, and D'Lo is also a very talented young guard. Draymond, older, yes, but this could be a big bounce-back season, and it's not only that, but he could be doing this for at least a couple of more years. CP3, that's a steal. That's a steal. I understand he's older, and you're not going to want him for much longer, but being on this Thunder team this year with no one else, he's putting up close to, third-year prime Chris Paul New Orleans numbers, so that's worth it. So, Ish, your positives are that essentially from top to bottom, excluding Denzel Valentine and who's the other guy, Norman Powell, you've got a pretty fucking good team all the way through. I mean, you've got great pieces surrounding your cornerstone in Nikola Jokic, and you've got a really good opportunity to win this thing. Okafor gonna be nice. And your cons are just those last 2 picks. It doesn't matter at the end of the day. You're going to drop them. You'll be exploring that waiver wire soon. Everyone drops people throughout the year, and I'm sure you're going to find some people, some steals, and it'll just make your team even better. This will probably relatively look like the team that Ish brings back. Yes, CP is old, but what are you going to do? Just not bring back a potential 27-point-per-game fantasy player? I don't think so. At the end of the day, Ish should have the best record, and it's looking like it's going to be around 16-3. That is the order in which I think we'll finish this year. Obviously, things change. Trades, injuries, people don't set their lineups. It happens, and I'm sure it's going to look completely different from what it all ends up being at the end of the year. But these are my projections as of now, looking at the teams and how things have all shaped out so far. Yes, I think it makes the most sense to me right now. It's 4 a.m. I'm tired as fuck. My voice is getting raspy. My eyes are getting droopy. I'm hearing things. I'm scared, actually. I'm scared. Like, I've heard so many noises. Get ready for the next episode. What is the next episode going to be? Next week, it'll be the second episode of the Dynasty League series. We'll see how the first week matchups all went, who won. We'll go over who the best players were and who to keep an eye on, shit like that. So, yeah. I don't know. It's 4 a.m. I'm so tired. Just smash the like button, okay? If I didn't predict you to make the playoffs, smash the like button anyway. Cam, Josh, Gio, I'm talking to you guys. I said I wouldn't make it. I wouldn't like this shitty video. I'm tired, and I decided to just stay up a little longer to say this, record this.